So welcome everybody to our online webinar. This has been a little bit of work in the making, but realistically what we were trying to do and hoping to do is gather some people together so that we could begin thinking about not just leadership today in people in leadership positions, but also what are some things that we can do and what can we learn from people who are already in education that we can begin to incorporate in our own work. I want to first acknowledge that this webinar is being hosted from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island in Canada on the unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And with respect, we will carry on and reach out to countries from around the world. We have people here from Australia, Brazil, Germany, Ireland, Malaysia, Thailand, UK, and Philippines. People who have registered, and if time zones permit, will all be here. And of course, the largest contingent is from Canada. So just by way of introductions, I'm your host for today. And I'm going to have greetings from Kirsten Steinhausen, who is from Germany. Your panelists are here. Paolo Ardelis from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, Jacqueline Lima from the Federal University of Goiás in Brazil, Barb Anderson from Acadia University in Wolfville, and Stephanie Harsh, University of Education in Freiburg, who is unfortunately ill, but we are going to have some of her work that we can present. We also have technical support with Wendy Craig-Langoche, and the interpreter is J.C. Burke. And what we'd like to do is take a few minutes, if we can, not sure that that's possible now, Wendy, to just have people introduce themselves, but just as we're starting to learn about this brand new account that we have, we're using Zoom as a webinar in order to actually reach so many people and provide translation, and already we've hit some glitches along the way. We had an idea where we would have everybody turn on their video in order to say what country they're from, but I don't know that that's possible. Wendy, I'll turn it over to you. What are your thoughts?
I think what we're going to do is simplify the process a little bit. Everyone should see the Q&A button down at the bottom of their Zoom screen. So what I'd like you to do is instead of asking a question, you're actually going to put in where you're coming in from.
Okay, can everybody find the Q&A in the chat?
So we have Helen here from Mississauga. And we have Anne from Germany. We have Gustavo from Sao Paulo. North Bay, fantastic. So I managed to get our chat feature enabled. We're halfway there. Vancouver, Patricia from UK. Lori from Vancouver Island. Mahisa from Ottawa. Sao Paulo, Brazil. I was wondering where in Canada Sao Paulo was. Fantastic. All right, so if you can just continue to add where you're coming in from, that's great. And then over to you, Patsy.
Okay, well, that's exciting. Just to let you know that we were really pleased. We've had about 56 different people register for this, which tells us a lot about the need and the desire to start thinking ahead with our students. And so we're just really pleased to have everyone here. Just so that we can get ahead on this, is thinking about why are we here? Really, we know that there is a need and there is an opportunity now and there is a demand. We know that people live their lives holistically. And read this quote, the systems break them apart. And until systems can function in holistic ways, there is not much hope. I just found that as I'm cleaning out my office and trying to get it organized, and realized that that was written in 2007 and it is still as current today. Really, it's COVID-19 is changing the dialogue. We have all kinds of issues that have come to the fore in terms of the isolation, the fear of the virus, the impact socially and economically on communities, rising awareness of the inequities, and that the folks who are most affected are those who are experiencing those inequities. And that has mobilized a huge movement for valuing life. There's tensions, there's more awareness of the need for mental health support, for human rights, for inclusion, and we have Black Lives Matter, Indigenous Lives Matter. So there's a lot of mobilization of social energy and chaos, which contributes to some creative solutions. But we now not only have a need, we have an opportunity for change, and we have a demand by the public for change. So this webinar is really designed to take our thoughts upstream to our students. It's not just people in existing systems that need the skills for change and the thoughts for change. We're needing to prepare and support and lead students in forward so that they can be leaders and participate in transformative change that's required to create these holistic, integrated, and person-centered systems. So that's the question for today. How do we do that? And we thought it best if we could learn from folks who are already out in the field. Thinking about change, we're all in the business of change. We all need ways to move to the future more comfortably. We've had systems that have been here for a long time. We know now is the time for change. It's just how do we do it? Because comfort is a barrier for change. And I was just listening to CBC this morning, and they were saying, you know, what the biggest fear is that instead of forward to make something better, that we'll retrench to going with what was comfortable and going back to the way things were. So how do we support people to move forward? We know that there are some forces that can help us. We know we've got different kind of theories and models of change. We know that conceptual models can actually be useful in guiding change. And part of that is because we all have models in our head of how the world should be. But when we're working with others, we really need to have different pictures in our mind and a common vision so that we have a sense of where we're going in all of this. And when we have those shared values and a vision, it frees up energy for change. So if people believe that the model that is put forward reflects their values and experience, their hopes and dreams, they can embrace the change as meaningful. Which leads us to the whole degree of thinking around the development and uptake of the circle of health. And for those of you who know my background, it was nursing. And we always began our practice, our beginning of new programs with a conceptual framework. And that always provided some grounding so that everyone in the organization had come together. There was some consensus on values, on the elements that needed to be addressed and moving forward. So in the work I was doing with the PEI health system back in 1994 during health reform days, we're really looking at how do you work with people across sectors, across departments to think in ways that were shared rather than going back to their educational backgrounds, thinking about the silos they come from. How do we begin thinking about communities and what are the elements, what's out there that can help us to create more holistic approach to health and yet a very systematic way of planning. And so the framework itself that we're going to talk about today, it is one of many tools that are out there, but we're familiar with this one, and this is the one that I've been working with over the last 20 some years because I believe it's built on values, and it has shown me that people pick up on it, they use it, and there are stories that I can share about it. So that's really where I am coming from in this. I call myself a bit of a knowledge broker. I was involved in the creation of it, but I still see it as its value. And this gives you some idea about the developmental process. But one of the things that I think is important is the shared leadership that was involved in developing it, because it really involved looking across government, civil society organizations, and really seeing a need and moving forward. And a lot of that is very similar to what we have ahead of us in the next while in our society at large. The work that was done back in 1996 is still current, even though we have new frameworks, new models that we can use and take forward. We're still challenged by tools and the need for tools for practical implementation. And so that's really where we're going with this, is to say this is a tool that may be the way to go. We know that it has had uptake internationally. We think perhaps it has potential for global adoption and more benefit if it is actually, if people are knowing about it and able to use it. I was just on a call with the Global Forum for Health Promotion, and there was a speaker from the WHO that was just saying that right now with COVID-19, we have a need for solidarity in health on a global level. And so thinking of it as being isolated in a community alone is not going to bring about the change that we need. And we also know that this experience with COVID is really just giving us the tools and the time to reflect and think, how are we going to handle other global issues such as climate change? So we have lots of issues that are in front of us and ways that we need to think about how as a world we can come together. And so we're proposing that experience with using the Circle of Health may take us in that direction. It may be a starting point for something brand new as well. So we're very open to that and want to engage in conversations about that today. So in moving forward then, I'm going to introduce Kirsten Steinhausen as bringing greetings and explaining what happened with her and talk about global work. Time zones are really definitely an issue. So hang on, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll hope that the rest of the technology will work for us just as well as it can.
Hello everybody, greetings from Furtwang University in Germany in the Black Forest. My name is Kirsten Steinhausen and I intended to attend this workshop, but due to a time shift of winter time, there's a big difference between Germany and PEI. I discovered that I cannot attend. I just want to make a short statement about our online course and our cooperation. I joined for UPEI in 2016 and got in contact with Patsy, and I was very excited about the Circle of Health model, and because I think it's very important for health promotion and for health literacy, we set up an online course combined with some on-course or on-campus meetings, and we did that course for several times to teach the students how to use the Circle of Health and how to increase health promotion in a more holistic view. And I think we can use that that seminar and that course again. We will do that again next week with the students. We have an online format which helps us to do that course online. And I also think that the knowledge you can get by this course is very, very good also for the COVID-19 pandemics and its consequences for different settings such as work and also for other environments. So I'm very excited and I would have liked to join the workshop. And if you have any questions to me regarding what we do and what we can contribute, just don't hesitate to contact me. Patsy will give you my coordinates, and I wish you good luck for the workshop. Bye.
Okay, I'm going to invite our next panelist, actually our first panelist, to share her screen. And that would be Paula Ardelis, and she is the founder of Bridge for Health. She's a cooperative and she's a lecturer at the Faculty of Health Sciences in Simon Fraser University, where she teaches health promotion, community engagement, and social innovation. She's the co-designer of a health change lab, so who better than to start this off with a discussion on what she's doing and what she's about. Just to let you know that the full bios on each of the presenters is included in our the Quick Learning Center, and you have a link in your communications about that, and we can send it out again after the session. So Paula, if you could share your screen.
Sure.
Great.
And sometimes I have issues on Zoom when I share my screen. I can't see anything else. So like if there's any comments, please let me know. But first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to Patsy and the organizers, and also just welcome everybody for being here. I am situated here in Vancouver, Canada, which is on the stolen and traditional territories of the Coast Salish people. Specifically, I am sitting on the territories of the Musqueam, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish people. But I also wanted to acknowledge that I came to Canada as a forced migrant from my home country, which is Chile. And I wanted to acknowledge also my Mapuche and Aymara ancestors, which are the First Nations people from the South that I wanted to honor. Just grateful to be able to be here and share a little bit about my experience. I teach health promotion in undergraduate and graduate courses, and I've been using the Circle of Health as a tool in my courses since I came upon it many, many years ago. So it's always been a very effective tool to communicate some core concepts. But I think today what I'm finding is that it's really useful to communicate what health promotion is for a broader community, people that might not be familiar with health promotion. But now, because public health is so much in the public discourse because of COVID, I have found it to be a really interesting way of sharing some information about how complex it is to tackle these health challenges and how we need to be looking at all levels. So I'm going to just share my screen really briefly with you. Hopefully this will go smoothly. I often find that when I share my screen, I just lose the rest of it. So let's hope that that doesn't happen. So that's me. I'm going to be talking about this particular program that I teach in the undergraduate program called the Health Change Lab. And I chose this example because I think that it really demonstrates leadership development in the context of social change, but also something that, you know, everybody could really hopefully relate to, because I teach with a group. This is from like 2016 when we started the Health Change Lab in here over in Metro Vancouver. This is a group of students that piloted this program, and so this picture has been kind of iconic. So the Health Change Lab, this is the first cohort in 2016 that we started this program. And I think one of the things I wanted to share about this is that this group of students here, as you can see, really diverse backgrounds, but they're also very diverse in that they come from all different disciplines. So this is a program that's not only open to students in my faculty, which is the Faculty of Health Science, but it's actually open to students from communication, political science, sociology, the arts, business, any faculty you can apply to this program. So that's one of the benefits of using the Circle of Health, is that it really helps communicate these concepts, these core concepts around, for example, what are the social factors that influence health? What are the different levels of intervention for health? All of those things are easily communicated with this tool, and that's why I have found it really useful in an interdisciplinary team context. I'll tell you a little bit more about the Health Change Lab. One of the key features of it is that it's a partnership. So it's a community-based partnership between my faculty, Health Science, and the Beatty School of Business, with the support of Radius, which is the social innovation arm of the Beatty School of Business. So we have developed this program together over the last 5 years now, but it's an academic program that has partnerships with the municipality. So we work very closely with the City of Surrey. We also work very closely with Fraser Health Authority, and also with many organizations from the nonprofit sector. And we are working right now, I've just highlighted the 5 key issues that are really priority areas right now in the context of COVID. So the students are working in interdisciplinary teams right now on these issues because we've noticed that all of these things have been exacerbated because of COVID, and the Circle of Health allows us to look at these problems through a lens of complexity, right? So understanding that these are very broad and societal issues, but the tool helps us be able to construct the key concepts that allow us to understand the determinants, the values that we need to be employing, and of course, the different approaches that it outlines in terms of the health promotion strategies. Some of the key characteristics that I wanted to mention about the Health Change Lab is the focus on leadership and innovation. And this is a slide from this year from on Zoom. Of course, now we're no longer be able to meet in person. So this is a group of students that are meeting with 2 community stakeholders that are supporting them in terms of advancing their project. So they are working in interdisciplinary teams trying to solve these really big complex problems, but a core of what they're doing is self-reflection, and they're working on personal goal developments, which I think is really key in order to prepare them for the future. So this course allows them to build partnership skills so that they're actually being able to work with the community and helping them co-create these solutions. That's a really fundamental part of this. So it takes very much a participatory approach, but we also take a participatory approach in the way that we are grading and reviewing, because the peers have to evaluate themselves, and they also have to evaluate each other, so that it's not just based on an instructor evaluation. And I think that that really has supported also their leadership development, which we hope is something that they'll be able to use in the future. And that's it for me. We had a short little while, but I just wanted to share a little glimpse of this example and how we've been able to work with a Circle of Health.
And I noticed that there are some questions for you, which we'll get to in the Q&A. So thank you for that. And keep your questions coming in. We'll come back to them. And if we don't answer them during this short time we have together, I'll direct them to the person who can answer.
Yes, happy to answer questions. And if I can put my email there, I'll also add that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Okay, and the next panelist is Jacqueline Lima. And she is a nurse and professor at Faculty of Nursing at Federal University of Goiás. She has a master's degree in nursing and a doctorate in public health promotion from University of Montreal, Canada. And she is an activist. Really watching her work on Facebook, I know she works very hard to advocate for the right to health and involvement of the population in the Brazilian public health system. So Jacqueline, if you can share your screen, that would be great.
Hello, bonjour à toutes et tous. Je n'aurai pas de vidéo pour partager avec vous. J'ai pris la décision de parler, de raconter un petit peu mon expérience. Ça pourrait être un petit peu difficile dans une autre langue pour faire la gestion des deux instruments pour parler. Alors, bon, comme Betsy a déjà dit, je travaille dans une faculté de sciences infirmières au Brésil. Et moi, mon champ d'enseignement, c'est la promotion de la santé.
Okay, just un instant, s'il vous plaît.
Okay.
So, hi, I'm happy to be here today, and it's going to be a little difficult in a strange language, but I will briefly try to explain what I am.
Je voudrais d'abord remercier Betsy pour l'invitation de partager notre expérience de l'utilisation du cercle de la santé.
I would like to thank Betsy for the invitation to share my experience in the field of health, especially with the nursing students, but also the federal government in Brazil. I believe that I have to stop. No, that's fine. So, first of all, I would like to signal my first contact with the healthcare sector. That was in 2009. It was in Brazil to organize some workshop for compassion between Canada and Brazil in healthcare. that says to reinforce the actions for the strengthening of health. She was very generous. She arrived in Brazil and also organized workshop for officers in the healthcare field, and for students, and for workers, for professors in many fields in the healthcare sector. Since then, and the healthcare circle, they've come back to Brazil several times. They participated in many events, especially workshops, to talk about the healthcare circle and also to discuss the professors de CoH, who has done a lot for our partnership and has the possibility to come to Brazil. And during this period, the healthcare was translated in Portugal. More recently, in 2007, after the Congress on Healthcare, Brasilia, which is close to my home in Brasilia, in the federal district that is located in our neighborhood. They went to Brasilia to a student in at the master's degree who worked with me. She participated in the workshop and in Brasilia, and we started thinking of the possibility of including the healthcare circle as a tool that would be used in the courses on health promotion that I offer each year to the students in nursing. Because we had a problem, it was the students had difficulties to understand what what we have as far as speakers or values that make the basic of health care, but how to uh, spread, take this theory and put it in practice. So in 2017, with the support of Cezanne Tone is here. He was also part and parcel of the organization, and Roseanne, who was also a student at the master's degree with me. We made a first experience with the help of healthcare circle and some people who did some work. But after we had practical, we used the circle to make an assessment of the practice. And our relationship was very rich. We were very proud of the result because we saw that the students, they really understood much more the conceptual test of what the promotion of health from uh, from practice than theory, and that's what we call in Brazil practice. It's it's the big defeat of showing how we use theory to put it in practice. So in 2018, we did it differently. We organized workshops with the Circle of Health with students to spread the practice in the community. And we have now some framework of reference on healthcare, and we also use our national promotion of health that has values and strategies that are very close to the health care circle, but uses the method of our area and the study the problems, and we go to search some problems in the community and identify them. So we had a surprise because a group of students decided to use the healthcare system to among the students of a senior high school, a public school, and they did a fantastic work on a problem that existed in the room, as a hussies, the bullying, and the people, the students, they prepared a very big circle and they put all the elements, the values, and what are the focus and what are the strategies that could be used and what we could use, but in a practical way in real life that could solve the problem in the room and in their school. And afterwards, they came and made a presentation to the principal of the school, and they left the material with the school, and they show they had an evaluation with the students at the end, and we noticed the potential of the health circle more than at the beginning. It was to understand the practical aspect of it, but also to work in the community, among the communities, and to be a user that we find very uh, important to develop personal skills with the people in the village, in the area. So after that one, this year, we have not yet had a course, but it's still planned that we will use the healthcare circle. But because of the COVID 19, uh, I know my time is up, but towards COVID 19, we have not had time to do it, but we want to deal with obesity. But we are one of the country in the world where the federal government uh, does not believe in pandemic. So at university, we did not give courses. And what we did is we use all the network that exists in the university to face the pandemic and nothing else. For instance, we produce some equipment for individual use, and we also work with different tests, the application of tests, and the nursing teams, and we started courses at distance in September 2020. So we had no time for the training of leader during that period. We also have problem in countries like Brazil with COVID and with inequities. And one of the problem we have is access to digital technologies. uh, we have people who don't have the equipment and they can't follow courses at a distance, but also students who don't have a nice web network to be able to do these activities. So it is a problem that hinders the students in different ways for learning. So that is now a common problem.
Mhm.
And they don't, what is the challenge to develop future professionals. So for us, it is to work in a critical perspective that will show how we can work for students to be able to use their capabilities. We have researchers, the education, public education. I use the reference and the principles for aid, the values and the strategies that support the practice in the healthcare, such as social justice, disparity, and it is in that perspective that the health perspective is very good for us. So we have to talk about solidarity. We have to talk about respect of life. So I apologize for the length of time, and I'll leave you on this.
I really appreciate everything that you've been offering. Jacqueline, can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. No, I know that in Brazil there's a struggle this year, and I know the rates of COVID are high. It sounds to me like you are really taking the principles of the Circle of Health and using them yourself in guiding your own practice and in supporting your students. You may not be teaching the courses, but you're coping with the crisis with the students in using all of those dimensions. And so I just think you have our solidarity behind you. I get very moved when I hear about what's going on in Brazil. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
And I will now introduce Barb Anderson, who is our final presenter in person. And Barb is the professor and director of the School of Nutrition and Dietetics at Acadia University. And in January of 2021, after a long career in public health and academia that she tells me has spanned 45 years, which is hard to imagine, Barb is actually retiring. Although I don't know whether you really ever retire from health promotion, so or public health. So Barb, I'm going to turn it over to you, and if you can share your screen, that would be great. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Patsy, so much. There you go. How's that?
Perfect.
Good, perfect. So yeah, welcome everybody. And it's a real privilege to be on this panel, and thank you to Patsy for including me. I have an opportunity really to do some reflection on some of the work that I've done, both in public health as well as in my academic career, which has spanned about the last 12 years. Before I begin, I do want to say that I'm located in Mi'kma'ki, and that's the ancestral and unceded and stolen territory of the Mi'kmaq people. So really important, beautiful part of the country that we share. The session is titled as it is, but I would argue that the use of the Circle of Health was an important tool for learning about leadership way before the pandemic. And what I'm sharing is relevant for leadership development at any time, and even more important as we begin to consider what the post-pandemic world will look like. And first and foremost, it's really important for me, and perhaps some of the people that are on the webinar today, is to consider with learners what are the significant issues that need to be addressed with the community. So as I said, I'm very fortunate to live in a very beautiful and relatively safe, even in a COVID pandemic part of the world, which is Nova Scotia on the eastern tip of Canada, for those that are not as familiar with the geography of our country. We have a beautiful place that Acadia University is located, very safe downtown, and the campus is absolutely stunning, as you can see from our University Hall, and also the panoramic that goes over the campus as well as the community in the Bay of Fundy, which, fun fact, they're the highest tides in the world. So that might help win you a trivia contest someday. In 2009, I accepted an academic and administrative appointment at Acadia University after a 30+ year career in public health. I started out as a public health nutritionist, and that was followed by an opportunity to step into a manager's position, as well as the acting director of public health for a part of the province of Nova Scotia. When I moved to Acadia, one of the courses that I was asked to teach, and some of the influences that I was asked to step into, were a 3rd year undergraduate course in community nutrition.
And this is where I'm drawing a lot of the content from, but certainly I haven't left my public health world behind. And a lot of the research that I'm engaged in still incorporates a lot of working with vulnerable people, particularly in the area of food security. So as a first step, one of the things to keep in mind is how to figure out what do you want a relevant course content to include? What do students need to know to support work in the community? And that includes being leaders and facilitators of change, as Patsy talked about when she set up this afternoon. And while I teach nutrition students, the relevance and transferability to many other students, either in health professions or generally student learning in areas that are relevant, I would argue is absolutely there. But to help me determine a curriculum, I connected with a variety of individuals to seek their advice about what do students need to know to be leaders in health promotion in the area of nutrition and others as well. And what did they tell me? They told me that you needed to understand the Ottawa Charter, that the population health approach, the social determinants of health, the values underpinning community health, including health equity, were critically important, that we needed to listen to the voices of people in the field as well as people in community, and we needed to learn about strategies to improve health. So I had a light bulb moment because I recognized that the circle of health would be the best way of pulling all those curriculum advice pieces together. And so I really did want a framework to underpin the course and provide a foundation, a text, if you will, that would support a theory-based approach to community nutrition, but also one that addressed all of the important components that you see here on the screen. And I had actually been involved with a focus group when the Circle of Health was first tested in the 1990s. I think Patsy probably remembers that. And I had used the tool in public health for planning and evaluation purposes, both during the testing and also when I moved into a leadership role within public health. And so I thought, why not use it as a foundation for teaching and learning about important issues in community health? And while the course was community nutrition, you can be well assured that much of it was recognizing the broad understanding of community health and health promotion that's so critical in health professionals today. So when I hired staff in public health, many were individually focused, and I wanted to make sure that the students who were going out after they graduated from our program understood all of the broad concepts that were supported by the use of the Circle of Health, and that included the social determinants of health. So what does that look like in terms of the course? Well, at the end of every year, I always did a journey map for the students to share with them what we had covered and how each piece was iterative, how it built one from the other, starting and ending with the Circle of Health. So we used it throughout the course to frame what the learning was, to develop team presentations on the social determinants of health, where the Circle of Health was used as a learning tool. Every student had to review a health promotion strategy, and they used the Circle of Health as an assessment tool to say what was there that aligned with the Circle of Health, but also what was missing, so they could make some recommendations for gaps. They did a community project, which again incorporated all of the components of the Circle of Health. My really strategic way of getting them to use the tool so they could use it in practice when they moved into careers themselves. And then they developed a reflective paper, which pulled all the pieces together. And there was much sharing about the value of the Circle of Health. So students are prepared as a result of this particular course for their community projects and placements, most who want to be dietitians, but some go on to be physicians, health promoters, nurses, social workers. They go into a variety of careers, and their feedback at the end of the course really reflected the value of the learning and the use of the circle of health. We use cafe conversations and evaluations to gather information on the value. And you'll see in one of the cafe conversations, the circle of health tucked there in the corner as being something that's really important for the students to learn. So the initiative itself and using the circle of health really challenged the assumptions of students in the course. It provided an understanding of health promotion and a framework for application of knowledge, all essential for leadership pre, during, and post-pandemic, I would argue. So you are welcome to connect with me if you want any information about the work that I was engaged in this course, but also in influencing some of the discussions in the nutrition program about health promotion. My email is there, and I want to share with you a photo of a gift that the students gave to me in March because we couldn't have an end of year event, which was they had a quilt of the Circle of Health made for me. And so I think probably I'm well known for espousing the Circle of Health for sure. And I have my little stacking tool as well. That's the Circle of Health that I leave on my desk to remind me that I need to also model the messaging that I'm giving to the students. So thanks, Patsy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barb. So here, just in closing, I just want to mention that this is the course that's being offered starting next week for Volkswagen University. And what they have done is they have taken the workshops that we have been offering online, and which we'll be offering again in February, and have asked that it be adapted to an online credit course. And so the workshops themselves are offered with the students, but also they do self-assessment, assignments, and case studies that are incorporated for the learning. And now, because Stephanie is also in Freiburg and working at a different university, many of the students are using the Circle of Health as a framework for their thesis work, and they're actually seeking internships to learn more. So I was just going to say that in summary, the Circle of Health began with very rational beginnings to incorporate some Western teaching on healthy communities. It was to find a model that people could buy into for PEI and call their own. And through the whole process of consultation and validation, it evolved into through a very creative and spiritual process to integrate the Aboriginal medicine wheel. And also many people find that it reflects ancient wisdom of Eastern and Indigenous worldviews, and will call it a mandala and have it just up on their wall because of the colors that have been also incorporated into the circle. The fact that it's a tangible tool, that you can move it, that it has been changed into an actual stacking tool so people can see how it's built on values. So it has become very much a planning framework as well as a framework itself. So it's a practical application of the Ottawa Charter, and it has a lot of cross-cultural potential, but it also has the potential for advancing two-eyed seeing approach for transformational change. And this is something that we really want to explore in the future, is making more of an approach to using two-eyed seeing as a guiding principle that really comes from Albert Marshall and his work in the Mi'kmaq community, and it's widely recognized now, but encouraging learning to see from one eye the strengths of knowing and the other eye with the strengths of Western knowledge and ways of knowing, and learning to use both eyes together for the benefit of all. And that is something that we may want to explore in the future, as we know that the circle itself can be useful in different cultures. We've used it in Serbia, we've used it in Brazil, two very different cultures. Now in Germany, it's been used in Canada, it's been used in Aboriginal schools. Can we make more of a concerted effort to look at how we can do more cross-cultural work? And just wanted to say that we do have some support. We're developing support. And I want to thank you in case you're all leaving, because I know that the hour is over, but wanting to also open it up for questions if people have the time to stay. I'm not sure about the panelists, but I'm thinking that that might be a really good spot just to stop and see if there are any more questions, or if people want to write questions. We can also share the contact information for the panelists at a later time if you're wanting to ask questions that way. So I'm going to open it up and see if there are questions from the floor or from panelists to each other, maybe that way.
I have a question for Lori. She had mentioned in the chat that she uses this with her BSCN students, work in partnership with Indigenous communities. I'd like to hear, could you share just a little bit about how you do that?
Oh, this is so exciting. And you'll see what sits beside me in every course that I'm a part of. 15 years I've been using this model, and this is just so fantastic. My name's Lori Evans. I'm a faculty member at Vancouver Island University in Nanaimo, west coast of British Columbia. And again, I'd like to first acknowledge the Stuminas, traditional lands of the Stuminas people. And also I'd like to acknowledge the traditional lands and territories that each of you are a part of today. So in the work that I'm doing, it's been about 15 years in building these relationships with our probably 4 local Indigenous communities, but each are members within the Coast Salish territory. And what I do with students is we enter dialogue with each of our community agencies. So this is in the 3rd and 4th year projects. And we enter dialogue and use this as a framework within community assessment in partnership and dialogue with our field guides and partners to then identify priorities where students can co-create projects with them for health promotion. So I'm not only I introduced this tool with year 1 students as part of Nursing 100 Living Health. With population health promotion model. And, you know, I've been in that course for about 15 years. I was also a student in the same curriculum once upon a time. So even then, the work that you've been a part of in the 90s, I was a student learning your work and then graduated, and now I'm teaching this work. So just to let you know, I'm kind of the next generation, and I'm so excited to be a part of this. So within the 4 communities, one recognized the strength of this tool in supporting their initiatives towards cultural revitalization. And with that particular group of nurses or students about 4 years ago, they conducted some research to help support that specific community in their grant proposals to acquire funding for a language facilitator to come and bring Halkaminam within their community, and we connected with the children's daycare, with their employment department. We were working through the health center, and then we were also working with the maternal health worker because she had connections with the community and relationships that we could then help navigate. So everything's grounded in relationship first. It's process-based, and the two-eyed seeing is fundamental. That's kind of it. So it's changing all the time. So we have 3rd year students that come from hospital into community. I ground them in the circle of health. Then they meet their field guides. We have dialogue. They develop grassroots kind of health promotion projects with clients in the spring. They then go back to hospital for clinical in the summer, but in the fall, they come back to the same community agencies, usually in groups of 4, so they can butt off into pairs for smaller projects. But then in the fall, it's based in leadership projects where they can build on the relationships they developed in the spring and then work within the organization to start supporting some of the larger initiatives at work. So that's where I am with fourth-year students right now. And I also have the honor of working with first-year students that are coming in, and the parallel in Circle of Health between year 1 and 4.
How exciting.
How's that? That's kind of...
Kindred spirit, Barb. Just some of the things that you're saying just warm my heart in terms of knowing that it's carrying on. I think that's the piece. You invest so much in the early years and then to see that people are actually using it. So I want to thank you for that, Lori. And I think that one of the things that Barb said to me one other day, not so much today, but that fits with what you're saying too, is that really that shift in thinking, the transforming the thinking from medical model that kids have lots of times when they come into a nursing program or into an educational program. I think you said once you were looking for a tool, Barb, that would blow apart people's minds in some way. And the Circle of Health was what you found could do that. And I think she uses the Circle of Health as her textbook, actually, you know. And
yeah. I just would like to say I have one question then for each of you, and thank you so much for this opportunity. And my brother is living and studying in Brazil and has his family there. So I'm connected in so many ways with this conversation today at a perfect time when I needed this, because it's post midterm, you know what we're all working with, buried in our stacks. But my question is, knowing what we do, knowing the model, knowing the frameworks, connecting, knowing this community, knowing the potential, how do we, not only in working with students, how can we work within our organizations and departments to get buy-in within this model? I share it, I speak to it, every opportunity, and working between paradigms. But do you have any suggestions in how to approach individuals or teams that may be very embedded?
Thank you, Lori. That is definitely the question. And that's a big question for everyone, is how do you influence change outside your classroom and the sphere of influence? So I know that Barb Anderson had just said that, you know, she tries to do that by hiring people who are of like mind, really trying to influence the culture of the university and of the people that she works with in public health. I know for myself, I'd really felt that we needed to begin with working with students, which is one reason why we set up this webinar and invited those who are using the Circle of Health as one of the tools that we might be able to begin using in creating some skills in our new graduates who are the leaders of the future and the leaders of now, actually. So I just want to thank everyone for joining in. There's so much more we can learn from each other, and time has run out. I want to thank those of you who participated from so many different places. The panelists, you were great. Thanks very much for coming on board and sharing your experience. Wendy Craiglin-Goche for your technical support and always hanging in there with me as I start these new ventures. And JC Burke for interpretation and translation. So again, thank you very much. We will be sending out a short survey after this webinar, and just trying to get your feedback on the content and also any ideas that you have for future programming. And we will make the link to this webinar and the recording available to you. So until next time, and I'm hoping there will be next time, it seems like there's lots of ground for dialogue in terms of where we go from here and how we might make use of the Circle of Health as a tool for curriculum and also for engaging others. So again, thank you, and all the best.